In this question, we are asked to use the information given to find the center and radius of a circle. They've told us that this circle has a diameter with endpoints that are -5, 8 and 1, -7. Let's review what a diameter is. These are very informal definitions. You can always Google them or look them up in the textbook to get a more detailed explanation. But basically what a diameter is, it's a line segment that dissects a circle and it passes through the center to make sure it's going through the absolute middle, and it's connecting 2 points on the circle. And that would be the endpoints of a diameter. So we can use the midpoint formula to find the center because that should be halfway between these 2 points, which are on the circle, and they're endpoints of the diameter. So the diameter going through the center means that the center point between these two is the center of the circle. Okay, so we're going to use the midpoint formula for finding the center of the radius. For finding the radius is half the length of the diameter. Now we do have a formula for finding the distance between 2 points, and we can use that to find the diameter length and then divide it in half to get the radius. So that's what we're going to do. Let's start with finding the center of the circle. So to find the center of the circle, we're going to use the midpoint formula, where we take our x values that were given and average them to find the middle. And same thing for the y's. We just average them. And that'll give us our middle y value. Okay, and then those point coordinates will make up the coordinates of the center of the circle. Okay, so that's pretty simple to do. Let's go ahead and do some labeling here. We'll say this is x1 and y1. We'll say this is x2 and y2. And so simply plugging those into this formula, x1 and x2. So we have -5, and our x2 is 1. So we just took our two x values and we're going to average those. Now we'll do our y values. So our y values for the first point, we have 8. For the second point, for y, we have -7. So when we simplify this, we get -5 plus 1 is -4. 8 plus -7 is 1. And then the -4 divided by 2 simplifies to -2. And then we have our final center coordinates, which you can also write as a decimal if it's a nice decimal that's rational and it can be written down without having to do any major rounding or anything like that. So that's our center. So we're halfway done with the question. Now we want to find our radius. So to find the radius, remember we said the radius is half of the diameter. So we're going to find the diameter and divide it by 2, the length of the diameter. So the length of the diameter is the distance between its two endpoints. So we're going to use the distance formula. And I keep putting everything over 2 because it's very easy to forget after you do the distance formula to find the diameter. It's very easy to forget to divide that in half so that you can get the radius. So the diameter is where you take your x values, and it's generally written x2 minus, well, let me not color code yet. Might not even need to color code. Let's see. So we're going to do our x values, and it's generally written x2 minus x1. So you find out how far apart your x values are and square them. Square that distance. Then you're going to do the same thing with the y's, and it's generally written with y2 first. So all we're going to do is just plug in everything that we've had, and we're going to continue to keep everything over 2 so we don't forget that last step when we get to the end. Right, so I'm just going to rewrite here, and then I'm going to come in and put in my values again. So my point coordinates again, I was using purple for 0.1 and green for 0.2. We'll start with the green. For x, it's 1, and for y, it's -7. So I'm going to come in and put my x1 for the second point, and then my -7. Kind of hard to fit it in there. It's a weird looking -7. Let me try to fix that. So I'm going to put my -7 right in there for my second point's y value. Okay, now for the second point, we were using purple, and it was -5 and +8. So for x, it's a -5, and then for the y, it was 8. Now we will simplify until we get everything as simple as it can be, and then finally we'll get to divide everything by 2. So 1 minus a -5, that's a double negative. Well, that means that we're going to actually be adding 1 and 5 to get 6, and 6 squared is 36, 6 times 6. Then when we subtract our combine -7 and -8, we get -15. Well, -15 squared, -15 times -15 will give you +225. And again, this is all over 2. And so now we can combine the 36, add 36 to 225. And what do we get from that? So 225 plus 36, 261. And when we take the square root of that, we get something that doesn't, it's irrational, it keeps repeating. So we're going to round it a little bit to 16.16. And remember that it's still over 2. So our final radius answer, rounded to 2 decimal places, is 8.08.